yes, it is a massive adjustment, but it doesn't make you less worthy, it doesn't make you less attractive. Let's talk about my bladder journey. So I guess I'll start with saying what my diagnosis for my bladder is. So I have an overactive bladder, urinary urgency and incontinence, spouts with retention, and suspected for Fowler's syndrome. So I started getting urinary urgency and incontinence symptoms about 17 years old, which was very difficult to deal with. I was wearing pull-ups from 17, which, if you don't know what pull-ups are, they're the equivalent of an adult diaper or nappy. Just like most people, I was pretty embarrassed about it. At the end of the day, I was only 17 years old, but it doesn't really matter if you're 17 or if you're 80. Like, we're told by society that wetting yourself is wrong and it should be something you're embarrassed by, and we're told from a very young age to go on the toilet and not to have accidents. So it's kind of drilled into us from a young age that is wrong, but it's actually pretty common. Quite a lot of people have urinary urgency or incontinence, they just don't go to their doctors about it, unfortunately. So I actually spoke up to my gynecologist about it. I have a really good relationship with my gynecologist, thankfully, and he was the one that referred me to urology. When I first started with urology, I said about my urinary urgency and incontinence, and back then I didn't have an overactive bladder and I didn't have spouts of retention. So from the beginning it was more the urgency and the incontinence, and I would have 40 odd seconds to be able to go to the toilet, otherwise I would wet myself. It didn't matter if I was in a shop, in my bedroom, or if I was in the bathroom, like, it would just happen. At the beginning I felt really lazy, like I was like, oh, why is my body doing this? I'm just lazy. And that's not the case. It's actually a condition. It can't be helped. Like, you can't help wetting yourself. So for the beginning of this, I just want to say, if you are suffering with that, you are not lazy. It is a condition. You can get medication and there are other options. I was sent for my first lot of urodynamics, and the results for that was there was no spasms. I did have a max capacity of just over 300 mils, and extreme urgency at 60 mils. I was also sent for a cystoscopy, which is a bladder camera, and unfortunately from that I ended up being in retention for, I think it was just shy of a month, and that was the first time suprapubic catheter got mentioned to me. I went home with a urethral catheter. I did trial without catheter, also known as TWOC. I think it was like once a week. It was grueling. It was a horrible, horrible process, and I don't miss the urethral catheter, let's just put it that way. But they tried to get a urethral catheter into me for 3 hours. I mean, it was 7 medical professionals in the end, each having 10-15 attempts. I'm very, very difficult to get a catheter into. So your normal size catheter is probably about 12 to 14 French. However, they were struggling to get 10 French or pediatric size, which is a 10 French, into me. Pediatrics is children, so that just shows you, like, I was very difficult. Fast forward a bit, I started to find that my bladder was holding even less. So I was having even more urgency, more incontinence, was wearing the diapers even more. I was also noticing that I was struggling to pee, so I would sit on the toilet for 40 plus minutes and I couldn't go. Which is retention, by the way. And then towards the end, I was very lucky if I got 20-30 mils out at a time. It was horrendous. Like, I do not miss it. Like, even thinking back to it, like, it isn't fun to relive, but for the purpose of this video I will. And in the end I was going 10-15 times a night and I wasn't sleeping because it was constant. I ended up having, a year later, a another lot of urodynamics done, and the process was so different that I could tell there was a massive difference. I just didn't realise how severe it ended up being. So when I went in, I couldn't pee for the first, so with urodynamics you wee first and then they fill you up, we'll leave it at that. And I couldn't pee, so they honestly thought I was going to fail it, which meant like I was in retention and needed to have a urethral catheter before I could leave, which I didn't want to leave with. And yeah, I ended up getting those results, I think it was like a month or so later, and it turned out that my max capacity was now at 100 ml, with still an extreme urgency at 60 ml. And there was also signs of spasms, and they weren't a small amount, if that makes sense, like they were quite bad. So from that, I had a follow-up appointment with one of the urologists that I was under, and she told me that I had an overactive bladder, urinary urgency and incontinence, and then the idea of Fowler's was thrown around a lot. I then had to trial medication. Unfortunately, that medication put me straight into retention. I ended up having a kidney infection and a bad one, and it just didn't work. That does not mean it won't work for you. Like, obviously everyone's body is very different. Unfortunately, it just didn't work for me. So at this point, honestly, my life was completely miserable. I was exhausted, I felt so unwell, I honestly was a bit embarrassed, like I was wetting myself. I think I was about 20 at this point, so it had been quite a while, and suprapubic catheter had been mentioned quite a few times. So I had been doing research from the first time it was mentioned, so this was at that point a year and a half later, and it seemed like a good option. Obviously I was also given like the option for the spinal nerve stimulator. However, I have a syrinx, which is a tubulosis in the spinal cord, so we just didn't feel comfortable with it, nor did my GP, and then that option obviously disappeared. Urethral catheter was an option, however they struggled to even get a 12 French into me, which wasn't big enough for the debris to clear, so it was constantly blocking. I was constantly bypassing. The infections were bad, I was having bladder bleeds. Like, I did not like urethral catheter whatsoever, and of course this is my experience with them. Some people get on with them very well, some people don't, and I think my main problem was the fact they could not get one big enough into me, and to place one was a massive deal. Like, it was quite traumatic, so every time that it had to be replaced, I would honestly sob because it was horrendous for me. So what ended up happening was I had another follow-up appointment with the same urologist, and I just said to her, like, this is severely affecting my quality of life now. I can't self-cath because you guys can't even get a catheter into me. I can't keep a urethral catheter without being in hospital 101 times, and I mean, I was going every single day, like, or every other day. Like, it was so bad. It was horrendous. Sacral nerve stimulator wasn't an option for me, obviously, because of the syrinx. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't drink anything. If I was going out anywhere, I'd have to full on dehydrate myself, which I don't recommend you doing, but unfortunately that is how I lived. It was never, oh, I'm excited to go to this place. It was always, where's the toilet? Am I going to be close to a toilet? Am I going to wet myself? Can they see my pull-ups? Like, it was horrendous. Like, it mentally does something to you, and I don't think people realise how much that impacts your life when you're literally forced to live it. Luckily for me, the urologist agreed to the suprapubic catheter. She had a meeting with the board, they all agreed with it. I was then referred to the surgeon, who wasn't very pleasant, I must admit. It was very much, well, you're not an old man, why do you need a suprapubic catheter? I was at that point, I think 21, I can't remember. He was very reluctant to do the suprapubic catheter into me. I was told 101 horror stories. I was never told, oh, this could seriously like benefit your life. I was always told, this is so negative, like there's gonna be gunk, there's gonna be spasms, you're never gonna find anyone. You know, me and my partner had already been together for a long time at that point. I think it was like 4 or 5 years. So yeah, but I do want to say, like, yes, you do get gunk with suprapubic catheter. It's a tube that's coming out of your pubic line. It's not meant to be there. However, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Yes, you do get spasms, but they can be controlled with antispasmodics and high assist or Botox. Yes, it is a massive adjustment, but it doesn't make you less worthy. It doesn't make you less attractive. It doesn't make you less appealing to the opposite sex or same sex, whatever your preference may be. It can be a whole new lease on life, and I'm living proof that it is and can be for certain people. Yeah, from there I was referred for the operation. I obviously had flow placed, and I am now 2 years later, and it was the best decision I ever made. So that was my bladder journey, or a condensed version of my bladder journey. I hope it's beneficial to someone out there, whether that be giving you a little bit of confidence to know that you're not alone with urinary urgency incontinence, or knowing that someone has a positive story with a suprapubic catheter. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It actually helps me a lot. And as always, remember, think awareness, not attention. Couldn't have the sacral nerve stimulator, it wasn't an option for me. I couldn't keep my life how it was, like honestly, no. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't drink anything. To go out anywhere I'd have to dehydrate myself.